as the enemy comes into the earth, what he comes to do is very clear. He comes to try to eradicate any place, any person in the earth who believes in Jesus, who loves the Lord. That's what he comes to do. How does he plan to do this? That's the big question. It's obvious to us that this age we live in has taken on dimensions of the spiritual that would have been unimaginable as recently as one generation ago. Everywhere people are understanding that things have changed, and they have changed very dramatically. But you know, people don't actually want to know the extent of the changes. They don't even want to know the character of the changes. It's like people are content to say, you know, things have changed, thinking that by saying that, they're prepared for the changes, or that they even know what the changes are. These times are so extreme that you may properly assume that the things that are changing will represent extreme changes. One of the reasons that the church is going to be caught with a certain degree of unpreparedness is because most of the leaders of the church today are content to talk about change. They talk new, but they act old. Because if they in fact inaugurated changes, if they sought out what the changes were with the intent of embracing them and implementing them, they're afraid that one of the things they will lose is the power that they have, because changes will mean changes in their present way of doing things, changes in the present structure. So what will happen is the overwhelming likelihood is that what will happen is that change will begin to emerge from out of the ranks of the people. The people will begin to see the changes first. Very, very few leaders in church circles will actually survive this process. Because even today, there are very few who are seriously interested in the things of God. They want to maintain the form, because if they don't maintain the form, they don't have control. They want to maintain the forms to assure themselves control, and then to permit incremental changes insofar as those changes will not disturb the foundations of their legitimacy. But all that means is that when change comes, it will have been delayed for so long that it'll be even more radical. And it'll take a generation of people who are willing to embrace this enormity of change in a moment to actually be able not only to survive the shock of this much that's new, but to actually emerge in it and emerge out of it with a coherent understanding of what's happening and an equally coherent plan to move forward in the directions of the Lord. To put it differently, you're going to have to hear God. And hearing God will mean you'll hear what God is saying. And today, the things God is saying represent an order of magnitude greater and different than what had been said before. Different, but not contradictory to another time. When it's different, it simply means it's been ramped up. I think that this computer generation has been probably the best prepared, because the changes in technology and changes in society and in the global environment come about so rapidly that this generation is comfortable with uncertainty. And I think that the ranks of leadership will be populated by the people of this generation who understand the need to change quickly and who do not get emotionally attached to traditions so that they're free to move at a moment's notice. But enough of that. Let's move on into how the enemy plans to control the saints, and by that control to eventually exterminate them, because that's how he intends to extend his time. Let's begin with Daniel. And the key for us is the reference to the beast with 7 heads and 10 horns. Daniel is the first encounter we have with this beast. Now, I want to take you through Daniel because this is critically important. Daniel 7 takes us up to the starting line. In the first year of Belshazzar, Daniel said, he had a dream, and visions passed through his mind as he was lying in his bed, and he wrote down the substance of his dream. Now, when God sees fit to have the dream of an ancient prophet be recorded, then we better pay attention. For this is no ordinary dream. You see, quite often, when God wants to show the future, if the future is so different from our present state, it is necessary to reveal it in the symbology of a dream. Because if we were to actually see what the future looks like, we would have no ability to relate to it. So Daniel sees in a dream the future. It seems incredible to base our entire thought process about the future on a dream, anybody's dream. But that's where it comes down to this simple fact. Do you have faith that the God who created you has been speaking to you? That he knew the end from the beginning, and he prepared the way for you, that you might know what the future is. That's the whole sum and substance of prophecy. You know, it will come down to this in these days. Are we just the results of billions of years of the evolutionary process of protoplasm of dubious origins? Or are we the creatures created by the living God who has formulated our future according to what he knew before he created us and spoken to us through prophetic utterances? You can't have it both ways. You cannot on one hand believe that we evolved out of this primordial soup into what we are today, on the one hand, and on the other hand believe we are also spiritual beings. It's either that we are spiritual beings who have been put in these human forms by our Creator, and therefore we are first spirit and then flesh, or we're all flesh and no spirit. You have to believe one or the other. It's a function of belief. It doesn't get any more complicated than that. It's not a matter of proof. You can't prove. You cannot convincingly prove to someone that he has a spirit. The question would be, how would you begin to prove that? It's a matter of belief. Do you believe that we're spirit beings clothed in flesh? Or do you believe we're evolved protoplasm? It's one or the other. If you don't believe, then the things that are happening are just nature going wild and crazy. But when you begin to see the stars of the heavens configure themselves in ways that indicate these dramatic things, what then do we believe? That the universe is simply shifting around? But that's what these signs are. We will have explanations, no doubt. But are the explanations the truth? If you understand that we are spirit beings in human bodies, then prophecy, and prophecy by dreams, is an essential part of the unveiling of these hidden things that have been put here centuries ago for our benefit, so that we might make sense out of the times we now live in. Isn't it remarkable that almost 2,700 years ago, There was a dream recorded in the Old Testament of a global kingdom. Long before there was even the comprehension that the earth we lived in was a globe. And long before the dwellers in that tiny strip of earth between the twin rivers of the Tigris and the Euphrates understood that there was a world beyond the horizons that they could see. A prophet prophesied of our day, and the prophecy was about a global kingdom that would snare all mankind in its influence. So Daniel had a dream. You see, it's not that the scriptures represent the height of folly to write down the dream that a man had. It's the substance of the dream. The substance of the dream clearly speaks of human history culminating in a global kingdom. That's what this dream is about. If we are spiritual beings in human forms, then our God who made us is like to talk to us in just ways such as these. Because the human mind 2,700 years ago could not, in fact, grasp the concept of a global kingdom. But the living God, who knows the end from the beginning, knew that's what our enemy would formulate to try to entrap us and annihilate us if he could. So here it is. You decide, because on the basis of this decision, you may experience peace of mind or terror in the days that are ahead. If you think that all we are is just evolved protoplasm, I promise you that the only thing ahead for you is terror in the days ahead. On the other hand, if you believe that we are spirit beings in human form, then here is what you are to be told, so that you'll be ready for what's ahead. All right. Now, Daniel had this dream. And in this dream, 4 great beasts, each different from the others, came up out of the sea. The first was like a lion, had the wings of an eagle. I watched until the wings were torn off, lifted from the ground, so it stood on 2 feet like a man, had the heart of a man, and the heart of the man was given to him. So the first of the 4 beasts was like a lion. There before me was a second beast that looked like a bear. It raised itself up on its sides, and it had 3 ribs in its mouth between its teeth. And it was told, "Get up, eat your fill of human flesh." So the first was like a lion, the second was like a bear. The third, then I looked, and there before me was another beast, one that looked like a leopard. So you have a lion, a bear, and a leopard. This beast had 4 heads, and it was given authority to rule. Then he said, now this is the 4th beast. In my vision at night I looked, and there before me was a 4th beast, terrifying and frightening and very powerful. Had large iron teeth, and it crushed and devoured its victims, trampled underfoot what was left. It was different from all the former beasts, and it had 10 horns. Now this is the first reference to a beast of 7 heads and 10 horns. While I was thinking about the horns, there before me was another horn, so an 11th, a little one, which came up among the 3 of the first, which came up among them, and 3 of the first horns were uprooted before it. So an 11th horn came up, and 3 of the former horns were overthrown. This horn, the little one that overthrew the 3, had eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth that spoke boastfully. All right, now, the scene changes, and some things happen in between, which are very important, but to keep the train of thought, I want to hold you to the vision itself. Going now to verse 15. Now, if you've just heard what Daniel spoke, what's the question in your mind? same as was in his. What does this mean? I see 4 beasts. One was like a lion, the other like a bear, the next one was like a leopard, and the 4th one was really weird. It had 10 horns, then an 11th horn came up, which overthrew 3 of the former horns, and then it had a mouth that spoke blasphemously. It crushed and devoured the whole earth. What does that mean? That's a weird dream. Then you begin to speculate as to what he might have had for dinner. In the 15th verse, Daniel expressed his own consternation as well. He said, I was troubled in my spirit, and the visions that passed through my mind disturbed me. I approached one of those standing there and asked him the true meaning of all this. So Daniel, like you, want to know not what's an interpretation, what's a possible interpretation. He said, I wanted to know what the true meaning of this was. And that's what we want to know. I don't care about speculations. I don't care about theories. If this is relevant to us, tell us exactly what it means. So here is what he was told. So he told me and gave me the interpretation. Now once you get this, there's no need to speculate anymore, because you'll get what it means. The 4 great beasts are 4 kingdoms that will rise from the earth. Now some translations say 4 kings, but there's not a violation here, and I'll explain that in a moment. The 4 great beasts are 4 kingdoms that will rise from the earth. But the saints of the Most High will receive the kingdom and will possess it, yes, forever and ever. So there's juxtaposition between the 4 beasts and the saints of the Most High. Who do you suppose are the saints of the Most High? Would God know who the saints of the Most High were? Leave aside the question of Daniel, because Daniel is not the one saying, but the saints of the Most High will receive the kingdom. That's part of the interpretation that was given to him. So it's the messenger of God, not Daniel, saying that the saints of the Most High will receive the kingdom. Do you suppose the messenger from God knows who the saints of the Most High are? It wasn't Daniel. So it's not a reference to the Jews, although Jews may be included and are included in the saints of the Most High. But clearly they are the people who believe in the Lord Jesus Christ. All right. Daniel seemed unsatisfied with the explanation, not because it was not complete, but because he had additional questions. If you were having this dream, where would you be fixated? Which of these beasts would capture your imagination? All of the other 3 would certainly be fascinating to you. A lion with wings like an eagle, that's very fascinating. A bear with 3 ribs in its mouth, a 4-headed leopard, those would be quite fascinating. But you'd be obsessed, you'd be fixated on the 4th beast. And that's exactly where Daniel was. He was fixated on the 4th beast. And so he said, but I wanted to know the true meaning of the 4th beast. That's verse 19. Which was different from all the others, terrifying with its iron teeth and bronze claws, the beast that crushed and devoured its victims, trampled underfoot what was left. I also wanted to know about the 10 horns on its head, wanted to know about the little horn that overthrew 3 others. Right? Verse 21 says, as I watched, the horn was waging war against the saints and defeating them. He was waging war against the saints and defeating them. That's not what you typically hear today. Today everybody wants for the saints to be victorious. And they will be eventually, but they're not always victorious, in that sometimes they will lose. And this says so, and God permits it. Waging war against the saints and defeating them. But not always, but at least for a time. Until the Ancient of Days came and pronounced judgment in favor of the saints of the Most High. Verse 23 says, He gave me this explanation. He saw these terrible things going on against the saints by this fourth beast. Now, what do we already know about this beast? Well, because the four beasts are four kingdoms, or four kings that will rise from the earth, the fourth beast is one of these kingdoms or kings. But then he gives this explanation. He gave me this explanation. The fourth beast is a fourth kingdom that will appear on the earth. It will be different from all the other kingdoms, and it will devour the whole earth. I want you to mouth those words, the whole earth. You know why? Because the whole earth means the whole earth. This is the distinction between the first three beasts and the fourth. The reference we said earlier was that the three others were said to be three kings. That's because ancient kingdoms were typically ruled over by a single king. But this fourth beast is different from all the others because it's not ruled by one king, it's ruled by 10 kings. And whereas the ancient kingdoms represented a geography that could be controlled by a single king sitting in one location, this kingdom cannot be so ruled. It's ruled by multiple kings, at least for a period of time. But we see their leader arise as the little horn who speaks blasphemously. Now, in the time remaining, I want to, it goes on to say, 10 horns are 10 kings who will come from this kingdom. After them another king will rise different from the earlier ones. He will subdue 3 kings. He will speak against the Most High. And look at this again, and oppress his saints and try to change the set times and the laws. Did you see that? He will try to change the set times and the laws. Why? Because he will know that he's out of time. He'll be filled with fury because he knows his time is short, so he'll try to change the set times. How is he going to try to do that? By attempting to annihilate the saints so that God will have to start over. He will try to change the set times. But it says, the saints will be handed over to him for time, times, and half a time, for 3.5 years. The court will sit, judgment will be given in favor of the saints, and this beast will be overthrown. In the time remaining, I want to get to Revelation 13, because there's a huge gap between where we are in Daniel and the New Testament. Not only a gap of 700 years, but we must fill in some details, because the things we absolutely know are this global kingdom, these 4 beasts are 4 kingdoms, and the last one is a global kingdom because it'll oppress the whole earth. Right? Now, we'll have to pursue this matter in a subsequent discussion, but I want to at least lay up the framework so that you can see it all. Daniel speaks and then John speaks. This is John, in the book of Revelation, the 13th chapter. It opens with this. I saw a beast coming up out of the sea. He had 10 horns and 7 heads. with 7 crowns on his head, and on each head a blasphemous name. All right, but you will say, very quickly, you will say, Daniel saw a beast with 10 horns, but he didn't see a beast with 7 heads. So maybe we have a similar but different beast. Because if the beast here is identical to Daniel's beast, then what do we know about this beast? It's a global kingdom, because all 4 beasts are 4 kingdoms. Quickly now. What were the 3 beasts before the 4th one? Daniel said the first was like a lion, the next was like a leopard, the other was like a lion, a bear, and a leopard, and then the 10-horned beast. Look at this. Look at this. This leaves you with no doubt that it's the same beast. The beast I saw resembled a leopard, had feet like those of a bear. What's missing? The lion, and the mouth like that of a lion. These are the evil predecessors of the 4th beast. They're all predatory. They're all devourers. These kingdoms represent the evolution of Satan's kingdom, culminating in the final one with 7 heads and 10 horns. It's exactly the same beast. Daniel is looking forward into history, so the one nearest to him is the lion, the next is like the bear, the next is the leopard, and then the 4th. John is looking back into history, and the one closest to him is like the leopard, like the one further like the bear, and the most distant like the lion. We have exactly the same beast. So we need to understand what this global kingdom is like. So I hope you'll join me as we continue to discuss the future. God bless you. I'll see you soon. This is Sam Sullivan. Bye-bye.
Broken body, broken bread, blood turned wine, life for the dead. Surrender to Jesus your thoughts and your cares. Come walk with us and meet Jesus here. Broken body, broken bread, blood turned wine, life for...
Hi, I'm Sam Solon. I'm the host of the preceding program. We bring you these messages to encourage you in your walk with God. If you'd like a copy of this message, you may obtain it in one of 2 ways. You may obtain it by writing to me at the address on the screen, indicating what program that you desire, or the alternative is to visit our website at www.solon.com. You may download it for free. Either way, it's without cost to you, so feel free to write. If you'd like to know what's going on in the ministry, sign up on the website for our newsletter. Thank you, and God bless you. Bye-bye.